We're here at the newly renovated Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum in downtown Los Angeles for the Pollstar Next Gen Roundtable. I'm Phil Quist, agent at CAA, and I'm here to introduce you to a well-rounded group that includes Sally Karazi from Full Stop Management, Victoria Gutierrez from ICM Partners, Patrick Wilson from NEVA, and tour promoter Tyler Scott from Live Nation. First off, I'd love for each of you to tell us about how you got your start in the business, and ultimately, since we all have a passion for music, what drove that passion in music?
I went to Indiana University, and I was a journalism major, and junior year realized I didn't want to be a beat reporter for 3 or 4 years in a small town, and I wasn't really great at time management for writing. And so I had a day where I just was like, what gives me the chills? And that was live music. And so after I graduated, I went up to Evanston, just north of Chicago, and interned at a venue called Space, which is like a 300 cap room. And sort of just filled any hole I could there for as long as I could, and learned everything I know about booking and venue management from a guy that still books there, Jake Samuels, who does a couple of really stellar rooms at Thalia Hall on the south side, Chicago, and worked my way up to managing the room. And from there went off to Philadelphia and directed marketing for World Cafe Live for a couple of years. And then more recently I've been booking a room, an 800 cap room in Jersey City. And then over the pandemic have been running artist relations for the National Independent Venue Association.
Which must have been crazy, and definitely want to come back to that.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I started out, I was an athlete at UCLA, playing baseball and football over there, and I had got injured.
And you played right here too, right?
Yeah, I played a couple games here, but yeah, mostly at the Rose Bowl. But yeah, I got injured my redshirt senior year and had to medically retire. And so at that point, the only real thing I had ever cared about out there or had time for or made time for was music. So I was always a crate digger, always just looking for beats and deep cuts. I just love music. So at that point, I knew it had to be something in music. I was out of college doing rehab on my knee and was trying to get my foot in the door. I ended up getting an interview with Tyler Reckin at Steelwool, and he's like, yo, I can't give you this job. He told me, yo, I can't give you this job, like your resume doesn't say anything, but you should come out and play softball, like the softball season starts tomorrow. I used to work at Live Nation and play with a bunch of execs over there, like you should come out and meet the team. And I had just got cleared to run like the day before this interview too. And so I was like, yeah, I'll come out. Like, I don't know if I could run the bases, but hopefully I'll just hit it far enough that I could jog, you know? So I came out, played softball with them, and I'm hitting balls. They've never seen balls hit this far. They're like, yo, come out next week. And I was like the ringer. And so I ended up playing softball with these guys for like 4 months. And after 4 months, Omar, who was like the captain of the team, his assistant had just gone out on the St. Pablo tour, so he had a space open. Him and Ryan McElrath shared an assistant at the time, but he was like, yo, you want to come meet my partner Ryan? And I was like, I'll pick your phone up all day, like, let's go. So they ended up hiring me like the next weekend, and just worked my way up from there. I was their assistant for about 2 years, and left to go work for Sean G and develop some of his projects with Live Nation Urban, and then I'm back in the touring office.
I went to UC Santa Barbara, and my senior year, I had no idea what I wanted to do after I graduated, which seems like the consensus here. And I had to take a random elective course to fill credits to graduate. And the teacher took a liking to me. She happened to be one of the main writers on Cheers in the 80s. And she's like, you'd be a great agent. I was like, what is that? She got me an interview, and I worked for 6 months in their comedy touring department, which was really aggressive. I worked under Mike Berkowitz, who, if you know who he is, he's a really intense guy, but great, phenomenal. I was just wasn't what I wanted to do. And then I interviewed with Dennis Ashley at ICM and got the job, worked for him for about 3.5 years until I was promoted to coordinator, which was a fight. And I've been at ICM pretty much my entire career. Nothing bad to say. I love my team a lot. So.
I actually went to USC, so this is amazing. This is a dream. I have always loved music. I grew up street teaming. Like I had camp counselors that were in a band, and I'm like, this is so cool. It's like burn CDs and hand them out to my friends. Then graduated high school, and then I was on like another street team, and they're like, hey, you should come intern at the label. I'm like, I don't know what that means, but sure. And that's kind of how it started. I started in the label world, and then I started working with the artists directly, and it just kind of, I never knew what I wanted to do at that point. I just knew I didn't want to be at a label. And so I was graduating, it was April, and I was like, what am I gonna do? And I did all the USC concerts while I was here, and so we had concerts for the campus, and it was like coming up on our Spring Fest show, and I'm like, well, this is really cool. I need to be in music, but I don't know how this is gonna work. And then one of the artists I used to work with gave me a call. He was like, hey, I want you to be my friend. And his friend was Sky Blue from LMFAO, and they were starting tour the next month. And they're like, well, you want to come? Like, he's like, I'm trying to do my own brand, so can you come on tour with us? I'm like, for sure. So I graduated USC, and then 10 days later, I went on the road with LMFAO for like 3.5 months. That was the craziest experience of my life, I think, to this day. But from there, I just kind of tried to figure it out, and so I kind of fell into all these crazy positions, but never officially. So I had all these crazy titles. I helped one of the guys run his independent record label, and I managed him, and then he booked a tour, and he's like, well, can you run it? I'm like, what does that mean? So I routed it, and then I got a Sprinter van, and I drove like 15 dudes with a trailer across the country, and I'm like 5 feet tall, and I'm like, what am I doing? What do I want? So after a while, I kind of just stopped everything, and I ended up seeing a job opening at Pollstar, and I applied. It was an assistant position. I'd never picked up a phone. I'd never like kind of started in the mailroom, if you will. So I kind of took it back because I was like, I'm going to start at a company that has stability with some artists I recognize and go from there. And it kind of, that was 4 years ago, and it blew my mind to kind of see how things work when done properly and officially. So that's where I ended up here. But it's always been music for me. I just didn't know how I would end up here.
No, that's awesome. And I think a through line that we've seen and heard from all of you is that, you know, you all had a passion for music, but just wanted to get in any way possible. And I'm sure when you got into the music business and started the music business, you all had lofty goals and dreams and a vision of what success looked like for you. So to that point, I mean, what has been your biggest accomplishment in your career thus far?
So, I mean, booking this, we did this festival in October to Save Our Stages Fest, and October of last year, and that was, for sure a dream and something that's sort of a once in a lifetime thing at that point for me. We shot 35 artists in about 20 different rooms across the country in the middle of a pandemic, and got to work with people I admire at NEVA and YouTube and Google, and it was crazy. We were booking a festival and a tour sort of, and to empty rooms, and producing something that none of us, we were working with YouTube, so we all had, they had a great background, but we were just sort of changing a tire at 80 miles per hour, down the highway. So that was really impactful. But I think, to that extent, we also, being a small part in this, the largest federal funding of the arts program, getting Congress to pass something for $16 billion, that'll always make me really emotional, and I'm a crier too. So,
so you're gonna shed some tears today?
Yeah.
No, but that's obviously no small feat, and it's incredible, and it played a huge part in keeping the live music business alive. So.
Thanks.
I don't know what my greatest accomplishment is, but the one I'm the most proud of, I think, is the work we did in developing Hers Lights On Festival out in Concord. I already had experience in the booking world, in the festival booking world, but that was my first time really coming together to produce something. Sean always told me like there's a difference between being a booker, a promoter, and a producer, and that's the first time I really took into account like the experience and front of house activations and what it's going to feel like and how to deliver for the artists. And it was just amazing. It was an amazing experience getting to work with Jeff and Janine and the whole MBK team and DPS, who are amazing at producing events. RIP to Dan Parisi. Man, he was such a good dude. But yeah, that's the one I'm the most proud of, seeing that one play off.
I wouldn't say biggest moment, but it's definitely pivotal, is when I got promoted. Like, agencies do not make it easy for you to get promoted. It's a fight, it's a chess game. But it was like blood, sweat, and tears when it finally happened. It was kind of when the real work started for me. It was just all this knowledge I had acquired over, 5 years to be exact. And I was finally able to start using it and kind of spread my wings and finally have some freedom to really do my own thing, sign what I wanted to sign, and pick up my own phone. So that was it's not as exciting as the other guys, but it's a very important one.
Yeah.
Get your own email. It's a whole
Got a
thing.
door.
Yeah.
It's a whole
door.
thing.
Important.
Doors are a big deal. I agree. I think getting through last year, I think there's a lot of like pivotal moments, like just sitting in this chair at my alma mater and like being on a panel with some incredible people is already mind blowing. But I think making it through the pandemic year, but still remaining really busy and doing a lot of stuff. Like Meghan Trainor released her album January, right before pandemic hit. And so then when everything shut down, it was kind of like, well, where do we go from here? And we did like a live from home tour, and we tried to get creative and raise money for Feeding America to try to do something, anything we could. We ended up releasing a deluxe album. We ended up releasing a Christmas album. She ended up signing a crazy like NBC development deal, but it was just kind of a thing of like, well, we're stuck at home, but how are we going to make this, how are we going to make progress while we're here? And it was just kind of a sign of, well, nothing's really impossible at this point. If you can figure out how to make work while you're stuck at home and unable to do live shows, which is so important for musicians, like figuring that out was pretty cool.
For sure. So, I mean, for a couple of you, some of your memorable moments in your career were during the pandemic. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about the pandemic and the effect that had on our business and in your careers specifically. What did you learn throughout the pandemic? What moments stood out to you, and how did you adapt in the way that you did business? How did your colleagues adapt, and how did it shift operations overall?
I think live streaming really, in the beginning, I don't think anybody knew what to do, especially at the agency level. You're just like, I need to find a way to make money, like turning over rocks, getting creative, and find that check. So when live streaming really became a thing, and talking to your artists and really being like, look, if you want to see any kind of cash, this is what you do. You got to get creative. You need to get really involved. Those were probably some of the hardest shows I've ever worked on. There are so many details. I think colleges really did a great job executing that and still, entertaining their students. So really, live streaming helped keep everybody's spirits at a point where we're like, we still have something. There's still something going on to keep people busy, to look forward to something else. And now I really see it being an integral part moving forward, because festivals, that's going to be a thing. It was before, but now it's spread across. Artists have the choice to live stream shows if fans don't feel comfortable enough to go to the show, even if they're in the same city. So I think that was really huge.
I think that's a great point about getting creative. I think that was the biggest part of the pandemic, was like, how can we figure this out? We can't do it any way we've ever done it before, so how do we get creative? And then I think the other end of that for me was communication. Our company at Pollstar Management did an incredible job of we had weekly staff meetings on Zoom and just kept in touch. And honestly, I've never felt closer to the people that I work with than I did during that time, and it helped just fuel that creativity, because you'd be talking to another manager and they're like, oh, this is what I'm doing with my artist. I'm like, oh, this is what we're doing. Oh, cool, let's chat. And it just kind of allowed us to think outside the box more than we ever have before.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because it's definitely a trauma, right? And like that we're all going through and still going through. And so, and I think with the communication stuff, I mean, I can speak for what it was like, for years before this, there's always been talks of little by little at conferences, venues, independent venues sort of getting together and doing something to stay on top of their game. And it's crazy that it took a pandemic to get everyone together. And that was what was really inspiring for me too, was like, we're in these calls, with, at this point, hundreds and hundreds of venues across the country, people that are competitors in same markets, and we're all just trying to figure out how to fucking do it. And so like you felt as close at Full Stop as, you ever have. I think for us in our community at these rooms, there's nothing that's united us like the fight for our lives. And that was really interesting.
From the promoter side, I mean, the pandemic was obviously very difficult for us, and I think the main thing we tried to focus on was creating value and creating ways for fans to still connect to the artists while they're not able to be out on the road. I mean, yeah, to me, that's what we focused on. It's tough because you're trying to create new pricing models. You can't necessarily scale shows and create extra value. You try and be creative and create, breakout rooms, maybe create a VIP package where you might have some type of exclusive access to the artist, and you create another value channel that way. But for the most part, those events are largely dependent on sponsorship and not necessarily ticket revenue. So it was a great opportunity to kind of expand on, the brand relationships we had. And that's, again, when I talk about producing something rather than just booking it, there's other aspects that you need to focus on in order for everything to at least come out flat.
The next one's for Patrick specifically. I mean, I'm going to pick on you a bit, but I mean, it's for good reason. It's obviously incredibly difficult to get Congress to move and push anything through in the law process. So can you dive a little bit deeper into what that was like every single day, what it was like talking to all these independent venues and talent buyers, and again, you mentioned it, some of who you compete with on a day-to-day basis, and how that's forged the relationship going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Look, I don't think if any of us here would close their eyes in 2019, we'd think where we are now, we'd be where we are now, especially turning into lobbyists. I mean, that's a crazy thing. I mean, independent venues, I think, were poised to be very good lobbyists. We just needed someone to tell us what we needed to do. And I think you saw that from what the action was. It was a pretty crazy experience. I mean, I can tell you from my perspective, working on the artist side of stuff, which was integral, just like the venues and just like the fans of the venues. And if you think about it, we could probably touch almost everybody in the country through an email when you combined every email from every venue, anyone that's ever gone to a show in their life. So that was really powerful. On the artist side, I'll say, never underestimate the power of what a phone call, from an artist to a politician will do. And that was one of the things that got us at certain levels to the next step, was finding out, I won't name names, but finding out who somebody was a big fan of and talking to Full Stop or talking to someone and saying, hey, can you get on the phone and just for 5 minutes and tell them how important it is. And that helped, and that changed some big tides for us. And so we couldn't have done it without artists and management and everyone involved.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, so I mean, like, obviously you all are killing it in your respective fields and verticals, and it takes a team to do that. It takes mentors, it takes colleagues, et cetera. Who have been some of the big mentors for you guys? What have you learned from them? And, even from before they became your mentor? How do you go about developing that relationship with them?
One of the biggest mentors that I have is Tommy Bruce. He works at Full Stop Management, and he is truly like the most exciting, like out of the box creative person you'll ever meet. And it's so amazing to work alongside that person because he pushes every single day to make you better. So you'll come with 5 ideas. He's like, okay, those are great. What are 5 more? And okay, that's a great way of doing it, but what else can we do? And it's constantly like, how else can we be doing it? What else can we be doing it? And that truly like changed my brain and how I think about things. Because I don't just look at something at face value and go, for example, like, oh, this is an offer for one of our artists. Great, I'm gonna look at it what it is. I'm like, well, how can I maximize this? What's the long term? What else can come after it? And that's truly just the Tommy Bruce mentality. And he does a great job of just rallying everyone to get involved, because you never know who's going to have the best idea in the room. It could be an intern, it could be a senior manager, it could be the person that's just like dropping the mail off on the desks. And so we thrive and we have these like brainstorms, and everyone is free to just speak out and be like, well, I have an idea. And he always says there's no bad ideas in a brainstorm. And just that mentality I now apply to every aspect of my life, because really, if something pops in your head and it doesn't necessarily make sense, it doesn't mean you can't play with it and turn it into something. And I think it's just allowed me to grow a lot faster and see things a different way. So he's just really been a huge influence on how I work and just like look at things in life and grow. And it's been really awesome. And it's just cool to be able to go into an office like Full Stop and be around people like that every day. Like the Tommy Bruces and the Jeffrey Azoffs and Tina Kennedy and Kareem Karmi, and like it's all in one building. And I'm just like, how am I working here? Like pinch, pinch, pinch. Like this is crazy.
No, that's insane. And it's funny you mentioned Tommy, because my first day at CAA in the New York office, I sat next to him, and he was one of the first people that really got. I would admire the way he worked and thought, and he's incredible. So it's great you have that resource to learn from.
Mentorship is a really big deal at ICM. I interviewed for Dennis, and I like pushed myself on him. I'm like, we're gonna be friends. But he really like took me under his wing and just kind of showed me the ropes. There's no such thing as a bad question at that time. How did you get from here to here? And just understanding the language, because y'all like to hide things. And it was really
Shots fired.
all the love. No, it was really just a true classic teacher-student relationship. And when I got promoted to coordinator was when I really started working with Robert Gibbs. And but if you work for Dennis, you work for Rob. It's kind of the office are next to each other. They're best friends. It's just kind of how it goes. But I really got to develop a relationship with them at a different level versus like me just picking up the phone. And they taught me how to, like you said, like really see past just what does this offer mean? Yes, it's a check, but like what are the moves to get to a better check, to a better, position for this artist, and really thinking outside of the box, which can be challenging sometimes depending on who you're working with, but being able to educate an artist and have those conversations is really important. They taught me how to have hard conversations. They taught me how to have fun, congratulatory conversations, which sometimes are just as hard. But yeah, no, those two really took me under their wing, and still to this day, just on the FaceTime, just like, what do I do? So, yeah.
For me, I would say my mentor is definitely Becky Moyne. When I came in as an assistant, she was Omar's tour director, and I didn't know anything. Like I said, I had no prior experience. I had nothing on my resume. I just played ball at UCLA. That's all I had time for, and I love music. Like I had never used Excel before. Like all I knew is I was gonna figure that shit out, And so she was instrumental in me learning the system of Live Nation, how to build tours and how to route. And I mean, I would ask her questions nonstop, and she's never condescending. Like always wanted to make sure that I got it. And I still ask her questions to this day. Like, but she taught me, I mean, most of like the mechanics of what I know how to do and how I get the actual job of building tours. And then I would definitely say just Omar and Sean G for sure. I mean, Sean taught me how to see things from a manager's perspective, you know, which I didn't. I could always relate and understand artists well, but I didn't know how to approach it from the touring standpoint to the same degree that I do now, based on just the insights that I've picked up from him, just the game, you know. And Omar just fixes problems, you know. Like, he just taught me how to, you know, put out fires quickly and effectively, you know. But now I've learned so much from the three of them, and no, they've definitely made me who I am today, for sure.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that you have, you know, mentors in different areas with different expertise, right? You mentioned Sean with the management lens, and Omar being a quick thinker and things like that. So it's nice to have those multiple mentors with each having their, you know, being able to leave their mark on you and the way you do your business.
Yeah, I'll say, I mean, I dropped his name earlier and he'll hate me for saying it, especially twice. But the guy that taught me everything in the industry, especially on the buying and venue side, is this guy Jake Samuels. And any agent that's worked with him, any manager, I mean, he's the shit. He's the guy. And he, you know, he runs, you know, built a whole room in Evanston in Chicago and another one down in Pilsen, and they're opening a big venue at the Salt Factory next year in Chicago. And, you know, he took me in, and we had some struggles early on because, you know, I think I had a good year, but I had I think like a lot of people, like no business acumen at that point early on. And and he taught me how to, you know, create a room and an environment that, you know, fans and bands and staff and crew and everyone alike talk about it when they're not there, and that was really important, and that was a really cool thing to learn how to bring to the community. And, you know, an artist would come through and say, hey, we haven't played it before, but we heard from so and so who just got back, like they love it. And you know, and part of that was, you know, having a green room the same size as the venue itself, and part of it was filling a rider no matter if they sold 10 tickets or 300. But yeah, I mean, I learned a lot from him. You know, he also allowed me to create an internship program when I was there, and that was really fun. But one of the things that we did was I got to basically, in the guise of bringing experts from in the industry to sit down with the intern. So I would take someone from, I don't know, Comma Music, which is a publishing house in Chicago, or a tour manager or somebody, and we'd sit them down with the interns and we'd talk and do these roundtable discussions. I was basically an intern at that point too, so I was doing it for myself as much as I was for anybody else. And so he allowed that to flourish and allowed me to basically create a bunch of different mentors in the industry when I didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
I think one of the things that we've seen coming out of the pandemic is technology has been moving at a faster clip within the industry, be it TikTok, which even started prior to, you know, having an impact on the industry prior to the pandemic. And then you have things like live streaming, which you mentioned, and now things like NFTs and blockchain technology. How do you see technology in general impacting our business?
I mean, it's huge, right? So I think we might all come from around the same generation of, we kind of started when not everything was readily available. And so, like, I feel like I was really lucky that I got in, I know guerrilla marketing, I know how to get things done without the internet, and now the internet exists, and so got to learn it like as it goes along, and just seeing how things can reach people so much faster, but how it's so fleeting at the same time. You know, an album comes out on a Friday and it's already forgotten by Tuesday because someone else dropped a single. And so I think the internet has already, and digital technology has already been such a huge game changer. But I think moving forward, I've seen that there's a shift in people wanting that specialness again, and hoping that as we move forward and things keep popping up, because there'll be another TikTok, and there's always going to be someone trying to compete with a YouTube, and there's always going to be a new DSP trying to compete with like the Titles and the SoundClouds and the Spotifys. But it's just seeing how we can, as people that work in the industry and love music, I'm excited to kind of see how we can shift digital or use digital to our advantage to bring the love and the long-lasting effects of our favorite albums. Like we were talking about how some of the music we listen to is just from 10 years ago because it's just stuck with us, and I very rarely find an album that I can put on repeat from start to bottom and listen to it over and over and over again. And maybe that's just because I don't have a CD player in my car anymore and I can't do that, but I'm hoping aux cord, or like back in the day, the cassette player that was an aux cord into your iPod, like I'm hoping that as technology progresses and things get faster and it's even more intricate, I hope that we can kind of try to strip it back. And I know things are going to keep coming, but I'm excited to see how we utilize it going forward.
TikTok kind of came out of nowhere, RIP Vine, but really is good times. But it really, you saw singles just go viral on there. But I'm kind of old school. Maybe it was my teaching and my upbringing, but have we seen anybody sell a substantial amount of tickets based on a viral song off of TikTok? I hope they do. God bless them. But I think that's something that 1 + 1 doesn't necessarily do. We see that with streams all the time. You can look at someone's Spotify stream numbers, great song, but it does not mean that those people are passionate enough for you to buy a ticket. Like, I love your song, but am I going to spend $20 to go to your show? So I think technology is great because it has the way of getting your music out to more people. It's not just the radio now, which it's kind of, I miss the radio, but it's really something that I think we're all trying to figure out. Is this really going to translate into something real? And I'm last. I'm agent. I book your shows. You need to have a fan base, but is that fan base passionate enough about you? So that's my stance.
No, I totally agree with what you said. Technology is always going to be a part of music, and it's great that we have all these platforms to kind of disseminate it, and fans can get it quickly, but a song blowing up overnight, a lot of times it can disillusion an artist, when it comes to their hard ticket business. You can't skip steps. You do have to develop your fan base, and you do have to start somewhere, so I can appreciate what technology's done for music, absolutely, but there's no replicating the live experience, and that's where I think your fan really connects. That's where you kind of create your real business that lasts.
Yeah, I mean, I think you talk from the live streaming perspective. I think it's hard for me to imagine the live stream. I mean, venues have been talking about live streaming for 10, 15 years. I mean, every fucking year someone's like, why don't we live stream it? And there was never a good way to split revenue. It was never a good way to put infrastructure in for a venue to pay costs for that, and then it just never. And then this came around, and obviously it was the way that artists and company management and venues were able to make semblance of money, and there's been some great successes over it, and some really cool companies, and Moment House, and a bunch of places that have come out of it. And a lot of people are pouring money into a lot of these companies. It's hard for me to imagine that it's a sustainable model once live is back. Maybe it's that an artist does it at the beginning of their tour or at the end of their tour, and they do something special, or maybe it's something where they block off tickets in a market that they're not going to play live, and you can only get it here. You can see the live stream. I just am skeptical that 3 years from now, or even 2 years from now, it's going to be a successful model. But I don't know. I've been wrong a lot. So.
Well, I can piggyback off of what you just said. I don't think anything will ever replace a live experience. There's literally nothing like walking into a concert, maybe getting in the pit, getting pushed around a little, screaming the lyrics to your favorite band while they scream it back at you, or those quiet moments when the entire audience is singing and just staring at that one artist. I just got goosebumps. There's nothing like that. And live stream is amazing when you can't be at the show, or
Yeah,
when we
we'll
were in the
replace it.
pandemic.
It's just an
We'll never.
additional, yeah.
Yeah, we'll never. You can't. There's nothing like it.
I totally agree, and it's just going to be about, I think, integrating some of those new technologies into what we're already doing in the live experience, and it's just going to be a complement. So that makes sense. As we think about, the next phase of what the music industry looks like, how do you view diversity and inclusion within the music industry, and what steps do you think the music industry and the leaders of the music industry can take to ensure that everyone is represented and everyone has a voice?
I could speak to that. I mean, you have to be intentional about it, for so long, there's not an emphasis on what specifically you're looking for racially and ethnicity wise in your company. So first you need to address what you're missing, and then you need to go look for it actively, and I think in the last year, I'm really proud of Jen Smith and what she's developed with the Black Tour Directory, because now, there's not an excuse to say, well, I don't know where to find qualified Black professionals to run this business or to fill this specific position, and it's right there, So I'm proud of the progress that they've made with that. But yeah, I think it starts with being intentional. You have to decide that you're missing something, and then you need to go look for it.
When I started at ICM, I remember very, very specifically, I was maybe one of 3 female assistants, and everyone else was a white man. No offense. But it was very, I was like, oh, okay. And I didn't have a Hispanic colleague until 3-4 years in. I was just like, this is it. This is a sisterhood now. But it was, I think, coming off of what you said, you have to be intentional with your hiring, and you need to go to those places where, we might not, I had no idea this job existed. And I didn't have an uncle that got me an interview. I had a teacher that really liked me, and that's it. Sometimes it takes a little bit more work and the outreach to dig deep and find a really good candidate that, I think internship programs are really important. Like ICM has a really broad scoped internship program where I was actually doing this a couple days ago. I was scanning the slides with all the kids and where they go, and I'm like, everyone is brown. This is right. But no, those people, they come back. They need jobs. Like it's definitely a couple more steps, but it's really important.
I think the internship program is a good way to start because, we think, and I even spoke about that, and that I was an intern, and I was privileged as an intern because I had, some money from my grandparents, and I was able to not have a second job, and I was able to work 60 hours a week and work my way into the industry. But if we start with internship programs, I mean, we need to be normalizing payment for internships because we talk about there's a whole swath of a community, BIPOC community, underprivileged, anything that can't afford to have an internship because they have to have a job to sustain themselves. And so just putting out whatever the $15 an hour or something could change the application process dramatically. And I think that's an important part. And I think venues to agencies to management, everyone involved should be doing that.
Even like the way that the internship programs are currently structured, like I remember coming out of college and didn't have any experience because I didn't have time with playing 2 sports in college,
You were an athlete.
No, I'm just saying, like I didn't have time I couldn't do a summer internship. Like I had workouts, like I had things to do. Like my seasons overlap. So it's like all the internships are for school credit. So if you graduate and you didn't get your experience in the last 4 years while you were busy in school, you don't even have an opportunity to get experience. So it's like I remember experiencing that and be like, I can't even, like, how can you put something, you can't get anything to put on your resume in the first place, so how are you going to get an interview,
It shouldn't be as hard as they make it. You had to play softball for 4 fucking months to get a job.
Yeah.
Like I had to do
you
what
had to
I had
crush
to
at
do,
it, too.
and it's just like they make it. Hey, I get it. If it was easy, everybody would do it, but they need to make it more accessible because nobody knew this job existed in every of its sectors
Well, I think that's a good point too, right? It starts from the top, and to your point of it being intentional and being accessible, it's like we need to, companies need to go out and offer a part-time internship. That's for payment. That can work around schedules. That's not necessarily for school credit, and just kind of make these things easier to get, but you still have to apply, you still have to do the interview, all that kind of stuff. But I think it's more just like, and then looking out for, again, to your point of what's missing, what do we need here, and reaching out to organizations like, She Is the Music, and knowing, okay, we don't have any females, we need females. We don't have anyone of color, we need someone of color. And not to, like push anyone else out, but you want inclusivity, and you also want your workplace to have different minds, right? Different upbringings, different cultures. That's all incredible for creativity. We're in a creative industry. And so someone who was raised differently than I was is going to have different ideas, and I'm going to have different ideas. And it all, in the end, will help benefit, that company. And I think it's the responsibility of people, and even people like us, to reach out to younger students or people that we come across that are super passionate about music. Maybe someone that's outside of Venue passing out a mixtape and being like, hey, like, here's a tip, or like, hey, if you ever need some guidance, like, I see you hustling, I see you working hard, like, feel free to reach out to me, and being open and available and a resource. And obviously, we have crazy jobs and our phones are always ringing, but it takes, one email or one 20-minute phone call to just talk to someone who's lost and has no guidance and doesn't have an uncle to get him a job, to just be like, well, this is how I started, hopefully that helps.
And I think that's a really, really good point you brought up, because, we all talked about our mentors, and it really only takes one person that believes in you and is looking out for you to really push you forward and really, give you some sort of inspiration to pursue this career. And I think it's every single one of us and all of our colleagues just offering a lending hand. I know we're all busy, but it takes 5 minutes. It's a lot of times, and that can change somebody's career. It could change somebody's life. It could open up a lot of options.
And I think that's a nod too to the people that are out there that are looking for internships or trying to break into the music industry. Like, it's not gonna be easy. You're gonna have to put some work into it. And like, there are people that are in it that are willing to give you 5-10 minutes of their time, but also they're busy. So it's just also keeping that in mind and having respect for people you're reaching out to, whether it's on LinkedIn or cold emailing. Like, it's very obvious when an email has been copy and pasted to 100 people. Take 2 seconds to look at the person you're reaching out to, say their name, say one thing that you've seen that they've done, why you want to talk to them. And Google is powerful. It takes 2 seconds to just write a quick note, and that person will be 90 times more likely to respond back to you. And so it just takes work on that end too, but I think it's all just working in tandem. We have to give people opportunities, and they have to kind of work to get them. And hopefully we'll get to a point where things are a little bit more even across the board.
And I think we should also add, you have no idea where that person's going to end up. That person can be your boss one day. So I think it pays to be nice to everybody.
Yeah.
And I remember my first intern, she's my favorite, and I'm not going to name names, but she knows who she is. And we were just together that entire summer. And she went back to school, she came back, and she now works at a different agency, but I've thoroughly enjoyed watching her flourish. I'm just like, that's my child. And I think it really just, you have no idea where anyone is going to end up. And I think that's my best advice to everyone of any age, to be nice to everybody.
Well, speaking of, advice for people of any age, in general, there are a lot of younger people who want to be in the seats that you're all in. What advice do you have, apart from what Victoria just mentioned, for people who are aspiring to be where you are?
I think, it's sort of a tag off of the internship stuff. There's such a cool factor for to be in what we're doing right now that it's really easy for people to be underpaid and overworked. And it's still going to be like that, but I think, we should be working to change that. And I think, so my advice is just know your value, and I think it'll go a lot of way. And you might not, I'm coming from a perspective of somebody that was lucky enough to be able to get into where I am from free labor, but I think, know your worth.
I would say just bring energy to everything you do. Like, you can always change your attitude. You could always show up with a good attitude, you know, and you could always be that person that somebody wants to communicate with. You know, if you're not bringing value in other ways, you can at least bring value by showing up and being the same person every day. And that's not easy to do, but you got to bring energy. You got to, you know, bring value to everything that you're doing in one way or another. And it's not always going to be the same way. It's going to be all kinds of different ways, you know. But like, I don't know. Like I said, when I got hired, I had never used Excel before, and I was like, I just knew I was gonna. I don't know what Omar like saw in me to give me a shot and like an opportunity, but like I knew I wasn't going. Yeah, well, no, I knew I was gonna let him down though, and I'm saying I didn't have that experience, you know. So if you don't have that experience, you can still bring value in other ways, and you're never done learning anyway, you know. So can't be afraid to admit what you don't know. You got to ask the stupid questions, and you can't hide behind your strengths. You know, those are always going to be there. You got to expand on your weaknesses. You know, I was nervous to pick up the phone when I started. Like, I couldn't have phone conversations like that. I thought I was going to mispronounce names. Like, I didn't come from that. You know, so it's something you got to learn. But you got to expect to learn that. You know, you got to expect to be that person. You know.
I also think no job too big or too small, right? Like answering the phone, but also if someone really needs a coffee and they're like, hey, can you please, why not? Like, why not? And that if that's someone who's a little bit more senior than you, that gives you the opportunity to take that coffee into their office and have one more interaction. But I think sometimes it's interesting to hear someone be like, well, I'm not gonna start as a receptionist, or I'm not gonna start as an assistant. It's like, why not? Those are the most valuable things you're gonna learn is in a mailroom, as an assistant, at a receptionist. Like, you have to look at things for the positive. If you're greeting every person that walks into the office, whether it's a manager or a client or even other assistants, you're the one face everybody knows. That's a huge benefit.
Yeah. And that's I mean, you're a great example of that, because you essentially took a perceived step back to take 3 steps forward, right? And now you're in an amazing position. So it's a testament to, you know, just taking advantage of that opportunity that you have.
And bringing that attitude and just being positive about it. If someone wants to get you a coffee, of course. You want to answer your phone? Sure. Why not? Like, what? And if you have something going on at home, everybody does, right? But it's how you walk into a workplace and you put on a smile and just do your best.
Constructive criticism is something I think everybody in every area of any industry, you need to be able to take it, because you don't know how to do everything. I remember my first day, I was terrified of the phone. Connecting calls, merging calls, there was a lot of buttons, and I was just like, you know what, I don't know how to do this. And I always remember that day, and I'm just like, you've come so far. But you got to be able to kind of roll with the punches and not let it get you down, or, you know, fuck with your confidence. And you have to have confidence, because if you don't, it shows in your work, and it shows in the quality of your work. And it really, if you have confidence, there's like sky's the limit. And I'm like really thankful. Like, I had 2 people in my corner that really were like, you can do this, you know how to do this. And I'm just like, you're right, I got this. But yeah, absolutely.
Nice. And then on the flip side, what advice do you have for the senior executives in the industry in terms of the way they could change the way they operate, or just things that you see that could be changed by them and that can have a voice in impacting?
Supposed to name names.
No, you don't need to name names.
Be open, be open. You know, just because you're learning something from someone who might have just, you know, started college doesn't mean it's any less valuable. Like, I think we all grow by learning from each other, and if you're not open to what younger people or people who are below you have to say, or whatever it is, then you're just doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah, be open-minded. Like, I think that's just because it's not broken, it can be improved. And I think every single person here has been somewhere or worked somewhere where it's like, this can be better, but nobody wants to hear it, because that's their system. But the system can always be improved. So that's, be open-minded. Lord, please be open-minded.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with both of those for sure. And just like, I mean, the higher up the pole you go, the more power you get to invest in the things that you believe in and the people that you believe in. So I would just say, you know, invest in people. Don't invest in people. Like if you believe in somebody, like give them a shot. They might not fit the bill, but figure it out.
I love the invest in people. It's so true. Yeah. I mean, truly, because like starting as an assistant, having had so much experience, like that person's not. I wasn't trying to be an assistant forever. And Kareem Karmi, shout out. He took a chance on me, and he's like, you know what, like come on in, and he allowed me to kind of spread my wings. And I remember we had just got a new phone system. It was like my first day, and he's like, learn the phones, Sally, learn the phones. And I was like, I'm gonna answer these phones the best way. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna merge calls. Like, I got this. But it gave me a chance. Yeah, he took a chance on me, and without that like entryway into Full Stop, I wouldn't be sitting here, and it was so important.
How'd you do in the first day?
Oh my God, I was sweating, like just profusely. And then I remember, luckily the phones were new, so I got to like blame a little bit on that. But like everyone else, it was, like fake it till you make it. I was like, I merged it, it didn't go through, but I'll do it again. I'm sorry. They hung up. Oh my God. Yeah.
Cool. Well, final question for you all. What are your thoughts on the industry as a whole, especially coming out of the pandemic? And what are your predictions and thoughts going into 2022 and 2023 and beyond?
I mean, I'm happy with where we're at, given where we're coming from, man. It makes me happy that we're able to do full-scale festivals and shows, We're obviously getting back into touring mode here for the fall. And it's exciting. It feels good to be in a different phase of work, instead of just being in the building phase, building business plans. Now it's time to, advance the shows and start having them play off, start showing up, it feels good to be in a different phase of, the touring season. Next year and beyond, I hope things calm down. Obviously, there's a lot going on right now, but I'm excited that at least right now we're in a position to execute for the rest of the year,
Yeah, I think it's going to be cool going into it. I feel like there's much more camaraderie within our industry as a whole. I think, Patrick, you said it, like, competitors even. You just at the end of the day, we all want live shows back. It's beneficial for all of us. And I think working together has become more of a normalized thing across, managers work with agents and bookers and promoters and every aspect of an artist's career. But it's cool that now those people are talking to each other and the venues are talking to each other, and we realize like, oh wait, we're all in this together. It's our ecosystem. So I'm excited to see what that brings.
I can't even capitalize on that because you both said it the best way. I think we're all just kind of excited to get back to, I don't want to say normalcy because I don't think it's ever going to be normal, but like being able to walk into a venue and there's 500, 1,000, 10,000 people there. I think that will feel really good, just to be outside and like I'm fully vaccinated and I am here. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean the consumer confidence issue that I think we all worried about 6 months ago is definitely not there anymore, which is a positive. I think we still have a lot of shit to do in this country to keep us safe and keep the venues safe and keep the artists safe. So I think, we should still be talking about, this is me, Patrick Wilson, talking about vaccinations, talking about getting to the communities that need it the most, talking about, I don't think we're out of it yet, for sure, but I think we're at a really good place.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and just want to say thank you all for coming and joining us and sharing your inspirational stories and insight. Thank you to The Torch for sponsoring this, for this year's Roundtable sponsor. And yeah, we're in a good place compared to where we've been, like you said, Tyler, and looking forward to the rest of this year, 2022 and beyond.